move this mountain. I just don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's when.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Thusell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio in the town of Geraldine, Alabama. You're in Geraldine. Don't blink your eyes when you go through.
Sure. Just one red light.
Absolutely. You know, it was a stop sign when I graduated from high school.
Was it?
Yeah, and we were living in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'd moved off, and so Mother called and said, we have a blinking light now in Gerald. It was back when it was a blinking light. And I said, a blinking light? Really? Ooh, and we were living in Charlotte where there's one like on every corner.
Like Aberville.
And then she called back later and said, we've got a red light now. And then when we got Jax and all that in here, we really got excited. Yeah, really did. Yeah. But thank you so much for watching IC Radio. And you can find us on television two different ways. Channel 182, which is local to the North Alabama area, and that's on Charter Communications. And you can also find us on Abundant TV. I'm sorry to tell you, but you're worldwide now. Yay. Yay. And so a lot of folks can see you right now, and that's found on Abundant TV, Roku, and Apple TV, Amazon Fire.
Wow.
So we're really excited about that.
We're everywhere.
Oh, yeah, really. And Rob Pass is the owner of the station out of Cincinnati. And so he was on the show last week, and he was so beside himself. I bet he hasn't slept any since last week. And so we're going to be actually a million more views.
Oh, wow.
In just about another couple of weeks or so.
Can I count that many units on my phone?
Ooh, you can count that many units.
They won't believe me.
You most certainly can. Now, they're saying 2 weeks, but you know how technology is. That means 2 months.
Exactly.
In everyday world, that's what it definitely means. I've got my friend Tricia Hopper with me right now, and she's with GAP, and that's the Guardianship Program in Marshall County. And wow, I mean, the more I dig into GAP, the more I'm saying, it's going to be just in time for me, okay? When I hit that mark, which is just right down the road. Absolutely. So we're talking to some folks for the very first time all over the country. And I'm pretty sure there's probably something like this in your community, probably not as good as this one, but something in this community. So let's educate folks. Okay. So what is GAP?
The Marshall County Guardianship Program, or GAP, is a program that offers volunteer guardians for adults with disabilities or elderly people in the community who do not have any family or friends that can help them when they are unable to make decisions about their being, their well-being, and those kinds of things. They're not responsible for any money, but they are responsible for their safety, their health, and their quality of life.
I'm so glad to hear about that because, back in the day, like my grandparents had tons of brothers and sisters, who could help with my great-grandmother. And, they take turns. And like right now, my mother fell 2 different times, and so I've been the caregiver for her. And so my son lives in North Carolina, out there close to the Raleigh area. And, I'm going to probably need something like this.
And you were saying all that, and I thought, years ago, there were big families. You had several children, and everybody took turns helping take care of the elderly. Well, then, when the baby boomers got grown, they all decided if they wanted an education or a better job, they moved off. And they don't want to uproot and come back, and mom or dad don't want to leave home to go to a strange place. So this kind of works in both ways. We've had family members that are like, I can't do it. I can't become the caretaker. I can't be the one to decide the medical decisions, the do not resuscitates. I can't do that. Let me just still be the child and love my parent and kind of volunteer to make those decisions for us.
And that's for folks who live close to their parents. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, you guys also have insight to attorneys and folks like that because, I mean, I'm one of those. I don't have to make those kinds of decisions.
Right.
But if your parents want to have a will or something done, they can do that.
Yes.
Through this program.
Well, not through this program, but I can direct them to Council on Aging, which is next door to me here in Marshall County. And they have an attorney that comes one time a month. And she sits down with you and she works out all the questions and everything that you have. She goes back, she writes up the will, you come back, look at it, make changes, and then a third visit and you get everything done. So, and it's free.
Free? You just spoke my language.
I know.
Yeah,
you have to go through Council on Aging. I know. It's a lot.
That's a lot because
it really is.
Everything's going up high in price now.
That's how my dad and my stepmom did theirs. They went through that. And it's it's a wonderful program, and I appreciate the fact that she's right next door to me, and I can always share that with my volunteers that I'm training, or with family members that I'm training, because now the judge has me train them too, and I can say, if they've still got enough that they can do a well, then you need to get over there and start getting things in line. Or if it's you that needs to make a will, so if something happens to you before mom or dad passes, you need to get in there and start making some decisions on what you're going to do, because I mean, we never know.
That's right, and that's a savings of hundreds of dollars.
Yes.
Because Phil and I had ours updated a few years ago, and back then it was like the regular price on it was around $500, $600.
Yes.
Wow, you really need to know about this.
Yes, you do. It's a wonderful program, and she's originally from Gunnersville, but she lives in Huntsville now. So she wants to come back and give to her hometown community. So that's her way of doing it.
Oh, how nice!
I think that's neat. I think that's really nice of her.
Absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about GAP, but I want to talk about, and we'll get back to that in just a few minutes. But I'd like to talk to you about volunteers and the kind of volunteers you're looking for.
Okay. I just had this question the other day when I spoke to a group. Most of my volunteers are retired, and their grandchildren are older, and so out in college or whatever, and so they're kind of like, now what do we do? We don't have ball games to go to. We don't have this to that. So they come in, and I have couples that do this together. And I think that's really neat. Yes, I finally talked my husband into it. Yay. I've been doing this since 14, and now he's decided. Like I said, it's elderly most of the time, older, retired, that come in, and they're willing to just be buddies with these people and make them feel comfortable. And here lately, however, most of the time it's 65 and above. The past 3 volunteers that I've trained have been in their 50s. So it's trickling down a little bit. And I have one couple that is in their early 30s that are doing it together. So I was really pleased with that. So that's helping. I'm assuming from me getting the word out that this is a program and it's something you can do together, and it's it's as much time as you want to put into it.
And there's so many things you can learn. And from talking to the elderly, I'm going to tell you what, more and more people are gardening now because of the high cost of foods. I mean, everything is going up. What a better way to find out from someone who actually lived back during the Depression era, they saved everything,
and it had another purpose. They recycled before the word recycle was ever made.
They were the masters of it.
Yes, they were. and I can remember my grandmother saving newspapers, and me going, "Why are you saving those newspapers?" "Well, I'm going to put them around my plants."
Oh, that's the perfect thing you can do. And it's going to save you so much money in gardening as well.
Yes, that's what she'd do. She'd put them around her tomato plants or whatever. Pepper and tomato, I think is what she put them around.
Well, my Aunt Elizabeth, who's 100 years old, she'll be 101 next month.
Oh, wow.
And all over the place. This woman you'd think she's much younger the way she acts. But she's always saved bacon grease and sausage grease and all that. And she would make soap out of it. Lye soap.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, she taught me how to do it. We're going to do a show on it. Maybe you could come with me.
Yeah, that'd be
we'll
fun.
have to do it outside so you can kind of take your breath
away
that lie. Yeah, I'm waiting on it to get cooler.
I saw this thing yesterday, probably Facebook, but my grandmother had a tin aluminum can that sat on the stove that she ordered.
Got that.
Bacon.
Got my grandmother's.
Oh, how sweet! I wish I had mine. But what I saw yesterday was they took the bacon grease and they took an egg carton, and they let it cool just a little bit, and then they poured it in that egg carton and froze it. And once it froze, they took it out and put it in little Ziploc bags. But when you started cooking, like Sunday, I put a pot of pintos in the crock pot.
Oh,
I would have loved to have had that little piece of.
There's no better flavor in this world.
To just chunk in that. That would have been so good. And so I thought, that's a neat idea. We need to do that. Because I had bought, it's not an old one, but it's a tin thing with the lid on it for my bacon grease. And I thought, I don't know how long that's sitting there. This is better. It'll stay better if it's frozen.
Yeah, so have kind of a rancid life if it
yeah.
sits too long.
But
they did not waste anything at all.
Mm-mm.
And this is just a good way. You young folks out there, maybe your parents always worked. My parents both worked, and so they didn't do the things my grandparents did.
Right.
And some of that, is just kind of a loss. And I'm going to say art. It's
It
a lost
is.
art.
It is.
And you can find out how to do all kinds of
Mhm.
great things.
I took my dad to Huntsville Hospital yesterday. To Huntsville, to his heart doctor, not Huntsville Hospital. Anyway, on the way home, he started talking about this guy that used to come into my grandmother and granddaddy's store. They were farmers. Of course, in the wintertime, they didn't have that much to do, so they hung out around the potbelly coal stove, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I was little, and I remember it, but he would talk about what they would do to farm and how you had to be careful tilling up the land so you didn't dry it out. And he was talking about cotton stalks, leaving the cotton stalks, just turning it a little bit, and then planting corn and letting it come up, and that way the moisture was still in the ground. And I'm sitting there going, he needs to write all this down because nobody knows this now.
That's true.
You know?
And I'll tell you something else my grandparents always did too, and then we'll get back to Gap, but I got to mention this because this is money saving right here. So Phil bought a thing to go on the contraption to go on the back of the lawnmower. So when he cuts the grass, I'm saving all those grass cuttings, and I'm going to tell you what, that can save you a ton of time in weeding.
Yes.
You put that around the plants and what have you, and what weeds you do have are because that mulch serves as a mulch, and because we've been spending over $200 a year just on mulch, I don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
So that's a savings right now. Now what can we go spend $200 on, Tricia?
Oh, shoes.
Yeah, let's go. After the show, we'll handle that.
Okay.
But those are just things that you can. You're a younger person, and go. Do this. I encourage you to.
The people listening to us, more than half of them have never heard of the almanac and how to use the almanac.
Oh, my grandmother.
My grandmother.
They lived by it.
Yes, they lived by it. I mean,
when to plant your peas, when to plant this, when to plant that. And it was pretty much well right on target, too.
It was. It really, I don't know how they do that, but it is very much on target. I was in a store one day, and they had one like by the cash register, and I bought it. And I just went like to the day that it was, and I'm like, how'd they know that? And then I went the day before. Okay, because I mean it was nearly spot on. And I'm thinking, how do they figure this out? But I'm sure it's the aligning of the moon and the sun and the stars and how all that works. And I mean, God made it to work this way.
Really, I mean, everything is a cycle of life. Yes. And I remember Granddad, because we bought the farm my grandparents owned, and they bought it back in the 30s.
Oh, wow.
And then we bought it a few years ago.
God, it's almost 100 years old.
It is. I'm just loving it. Of course, when something has to be repaired, I don't love it so much. But my granddad would say, I would say, can we go fishing, Papa? And he would say, let's look at the almanac. And he would look and he said, no, we need to wait until about 10 o'clock now or something. It'd be whatever time.
I had forgotten that, but my granddad used to do the same thing. But he'd take me fishing with my cane pole.
Yeah.
My little red bobber on the end. Yeah.
But this is a wealth of information that you can't find on the internet by searching Google.
No.
Because you had to have lived it to know what we're talking about.
I was also talking about my grandmother and granddaddy had a store down in Douglas. They closed it when I was in the first grade. That was a long time ago.
Just last year.
But my husband and I were talking, and I said, I can remember pumping gas because Papa taught me how to pump at 35 cents a gallon.
Wowzer. I remember that.
And Ronnie said,
and people fussed about that.
Yeah, he said, I remember 45. I said, I remember 35. Yeah, I remember that. So
I remember we were at a grocery or a service station one time, and my granddad was out pumping the gas, and my brother and I were in the back seat, and my grandmother looked at us and said, "Look at that." Well, we're looking to see what she's looking. It was just a woman pumping gas.
Because she was pumping gas.
She said, "That woman's pumping gas." Like it was just the most ridiculous thing she'd ever seen. My brother and I looked at each other like, who cares?
Well, I had a friend, this has just been a few years back. She was pumping gas and it stopped, how it clicks off, and it was like $20.12. And she started to take that. I said, don't take that out. I said, you can get some more in there. She said, well, it says it's full. I said, it's not full. Let me show you. So I pulled it out and I put a little more in there. Got nearly $2 more in there. And she's like, I never knew that.
I like mine to be rounded up.
I do too.
If it comes to $40, I want it to be of it. Not $40.20.
Right.
I want it to be exactly that.
And she said, I've never known you could do that. I'm like, her family was in the military, so she's lived all over. And I'm like, I've just lived here in Podunk, Alabama, and I knew that.
And we knew that.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to tell you the other story. And this is one of my friends. Her son just started going to college.
Mhm.
And she said, he called her and he said, well, Mom, I didn't want to call you until I just lost all, I didn't know what else to do. He said, I'm looking for the ice maker in the refrigerator.
Oh.
It was an old refrigerator, didn't have an ice maker.
He didn't know what those ice trays were
And
for.
she said, open the refrigerator, the freezer up. What do you see in there? And she said, well, some plastic things that, you know, there's, and then he looked a little closer and said, wait a minute, there's ice in there.
Well, those were the easy ones. What about those aluminum
I
ones?
know, I
that you had
hated
to
those.
crack open.
And I'd break them. I was always tearing those things up. I'd rather just have the.
I'd end up dropping them, and then there was all the ice in the floor trying to do it. Yeah.
But things evolved. I mean, they
Yeah.
do, you know, and it's just what you do is just such a resource for folks.
Mhm.
You know,
It is. If they'll just take the time and talk to them and ask them questions, there's no telling what information
they'll
they can
even
learn.
tell you about. They were young once.
Oh yeah.
They'll tell you some
Oh,
stories
yeah.
of their love life too.
Yes, they will. They will.
And you're sitting there, really?
Yeah. My aunt did it. She had dementia, and of course she's calling us all by different names, and her daughters were trying to correct. I'm like, don't correct her, don't correct her.
Leave it alone.
Yeah, and she said, well, my husband will be here in a minute, and my uncle had been dead for a while, and I said, well, where is he? She said, well, he had to work today, but he's gonna come back because we're going out courting tonight. And I said, okay. I said, well, what do y'all do? And I said, how'd y'all meet? And she started telling me all this, and her daughters were just sitting there bug-eyed, like. I said, y'all
They're
never.
probably like, shut her up, somebody.
Well, I'm like, y'all never ask. I mean, y'all need to ask her these questions about then because she remembers that so well.
Yeah.
And y'all just need to write it down for the great grandkids and the grandkids and all. So it was interesting to me. I just kept asking her questions, and they're like, she's just telling you everything. And in a minute, she goes, I'm tired now. I said, okay.
Yeah, when they're tired, they're tired. We're not want to talk about it anymore.
I'm through. Okay, we're done.
And think about the way we dress now.
Mm-hmm.
And so my other grandmother was telling me about her and her sister Lucy. They got called loose girls one time. And I was looking at my grandmother like, there's no way my grandmother was ever called
She
loose.
had on pants.
Yeah. No, they worked at a cotton mill, and they were just young girls. And so the dresses were all the way down to the ground, but they had to wear stockings, and it was hot. I mean, it was hot weather. Well, they got too hot, so they took the stockings off.
Oh.
And some of and I said, well, how short was your dress? And she said, well, it was down to my ankles.
If you could
And I
see
said,
the
but
ankle.
you still got in trouble? And her mother found out about it by the time they got home. She said, oh, my mother gave us a good
Oh, no.
thrashing.
Yeah.
They showed their ankles.
See, I can remember 1972 was the year you could wear pants to the high school.
Oh, you remember that? You remember when teachers wore dresses all the time?
Mhm.
They never wore pants. And so Miss Martin, I was in the 6th grade, and Miss Martin actually wore a pantsuit. You know, pantsuit.
And it had to be a pantsuit.
Yeah.
Wasn't no jeans
no,
stuff.
no blue jeans.
Mm-mm.
Oh my goodness.
The kids could hardly wear them.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
So times have changed. Now I'm going to be telling my grandkids stories.
Yeah. They will not believe you.
They'll be looking at me
Because by the time they're grown, this cell phone thing will you just be talking to space and they'll answer you.
It'll be a nose ring or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I told my grandkid, I said, now when it gets this time, you're going to give me your phone. Why? Well, you don't need it when you go to bed. Well, what if I wake up? I go, well, go back to sleep. And so she's like, really, you're going to make me give you my phone? I said, yeah, I am. And she said, but what if I need to call somebody? I said, in the middle of the night, you come get me if something's wrong. And she's like, well, okay. It was horrible.
It was just like the end of the world.
It was
I mean,
the
'cause
end
you
of the
punished
world.
her. You could have beat her to death. It
Yeah.
would have been near as bad.
And she says, what did you do when you were in school? I said, you went down to the office. There might have been a pay phone if you had the money to pay for the pay phone.
Yeah.
Or you could go in and maybe once a month they'd let you use the phone in the office to call somebody for something. But you know, they don't have a clue.
I remember the party lines.
Oh yes.
Oh my
Used to
goodness.
love to listen. Do y'all know what a party line is? I loved
What's
it.
a party line?
I loved it. I get on there and listen.
It's like Andy Griffith. I mean,
Mhm.
that's one reason I like Andy Griffith so much because I mean, you would, especially here, and you would pick up the phone, somebody would be talking,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes we would just kind of like lightly.
And just listen, and after a minute they'd say, is somebody else on this line? And you go,
The thing about it is there'd be several people, so they wouldn't know which
No.
neighbor was it. You just heard
No.
what we had
And
to
I
say.
can remember Daddy getting on the phone and saying, "Hey, look, it's an emergency. I need to call in to work. I can't come in or something." And she said, "Well, when we get through, we'll get through." Daddy was
Usually it was not that good. It was about a recipe or something.
Yeah.
Or, I planted my collards. You think it's too early? Usually it wasn't really anything good and juicy.
Yeah, not most of it wasn't.
But those are long gone by days, you know?
Yes.
So I've often thought about this. What if something happened to the grid?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We
And
wouldn't-
then
we couldn't
people
do
wouldn't know how to function, would they?
Mm-mm. The generations of my kids and grandkids, no, they would not. They don't have a clue. They would not have a clue. And even though I grew up in that, I've not done those things. I could do it, but it's going to take me a while. I might
I got to
starve.
remember, how does it...
I might starve for a while before I got it figured out, but I could figure it out eventually. But yeah, I mean, because I've worked in the garden and I've worked in the field. I've picked cotton, but it wasn't my livelihood.
Yeah. Not for 50 cents a day, it wasn't your livelihood.
No, no. My highlight of my life during the cotton field was getting weighed in the pick sack and getting stuck on the weight thing for the cotton.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. Chuck E. Cheese copied this. Okay, Chuck E. Cheese has this fun thing. It's like a bunch of balls and kids get in it and play in it. Well, my granddad had that in the corn crib out here, and it was cord.
Yes, yes. But say there was little rats in there, and I didn't like
Oh,
it.
my grandmother would pitch a fit every time we'd get in there. She'd say, "There's going to be snakes in there. Don't let them do that." But it was a lot of fun.
It was.
And you could just get in there and just wade in there.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
I know Papa had hunting dogs, and they had puppies, and you couldn't play with them because they were hunting dogs. And
Couldn't make pets out of them.
3 of my cousins lived with them on the farm, and 2 of us would watch while 2 played with the puppies, and then would switch out. And then Papa would wonder why his puppies weren't working out his hunting dogs.
Same deal with wild cats.
Yes.
My granddad had a bunch of wild cats. And he didn't want to. We would come up here, so we grew up in Oxford. So we would come up here in the summertime, stay a couple, 3 weeks, and my granddad would say, "Now stay away from those cats." Then they were wild.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, you look, and their eyes would be like
The barn cats.
Wild cats.
Barn cats.
But they liked them because they'd keep the rats away. Keep them away from the food.
Yeah, I remember having the barn cats, and milking one day and feeding the cat, and more than I milked in the bucket. Mama come down there. She said, "You're gonna have to stop that."
Or spraying each other with the milk.
Yeah. See, I've done a lot of things. When I say that
Stop
to my kids and my grandkids, that I mean, I didn't do it maybe 1 or 2 years, but I've milked a cow. I've churned butter. I've picked cotton. I've picked pepper. They're like,
"What's that?
oh my God, wow.
Where does food come from?"
Yeah. Yeah, really.
In the grocery store.
Yeah, that's what my grandkids would say. In the grocery store. Where else?
They got some kind of mysterious garden back there.
Yes, that would be my youngest one.
Yeah.
She was watching me do my flowers one day, and she said, "I like doing this." She wanted to play in the dirt. I said, "Yeah, that's the most fun, is playing in the dirt."
There's something about getting the dirt in your hands.
Mhm.
I mean, we got bees now. We're beekeepers.
Yes, I heard about that.
Yeah.
So are you selling your honey? Good.
Absolutely.
I have to
Now
buy
we
some.
only took out 2 frames,
Mhm.
and so we're going to do it again probably in a week or 2. We've just been kind of busy. A lot of stuff going on here at the farm and at the station. But yeah, that is the best honey.
Oh, my daddy loves it. He swears by it. And he swears that, like, he would use it in his coffee, but he would put a piece of the comb.
Oh man. Oh, my grandmother was a beekeeper, and I liked the comb better than I did the honey. And she would save that for us. We just chew on it.
I've never done that, but he always wanted a hunk of that because he said that's where more of your nutrients are, is in that comb. And that's what he wanted.
No doubt about that. Absolutely. But I make candles, and I do wax and that kind of thing. But I like to use honey wax.
Oh, yeah.
The beeswax.
Uh-huh.
Not honey wax, but beeswax. And it's gotten so expensive.
Oh, it is,
to buy it now. And I'm having to charge more for my candles and chapsticks and all that stuff because of the expense. So that's another reason we decided to just go ahead and do the bees.
Yeah.
And so I have filtered some of it out. So
wow.
it's kind of cool to get to do all this stuff, that, and you can save so much money, spend it on shoes, what you saved.
And I was sitting there thinking, my grandson at one point was living in Kansas. His stepdad was in the military. He was at Fort Riley, and there was like a museum kind of thing you could go through. and you could take corn and run it through, and it was dried corn, and get the kernels off. He was probably first grade. He thought that was the grandest thing, and I thought, well, that was labor when I was little. You mean it's fun? We had to do it and shell them old peas, old purple fun going down there.
You get that stuff done in there. Believe me, I've been through it.
Yeah, and have to get out of the house if the pressure cooker's on because you don't want it to blow.
Oh my goodness, it blew one time. Scared me to death. And the beans were everywhere. They were like all over the. I think Mother got on the phone, was talking to somebody or something, and forgot the thing was on, and it blew.
That is scary. That was like you clear the house.
Exploding.
Yes, you clear the house. Don't get near the house until I come out there until you come back in. Okay.
And then you hear some of these stories and you think, how did they live? I mean, how did they make it to 90 years old?
Yeah. I wonder that all the time. My grandmother was 88, and she passed away in August, and she had just got through getting everything out of her garden. Had to have a garden.
But they stayed active.
Yes.
And so my Aunt Elizabeth, 101 this next month, and so she was on the show. We were talking about this last year when she had her 100th birthday. And I said, but she can remember everything, and it's like, her mind is better than mine is. I may forget what I had for breakfast this morning.
Yeah.
But and then she's she's still active, walks around, lives by herself. By the way.
Wow.
She's one of those. And so I said, why is your memory so good? And she said, well, I like to memorize Bible verses. That's number one. And then she said, I like to do crossword puzzles, and I just keep my mind busy.
My mother has said that. She does word searches and crossword puzzles, and she said she read it somewhere that it would help keep your mind active and maybe hold off dementia or Alzheimer's as long as you could if you were prone to have it. So I try to do little games and stuff and on the tablet, and my husband will say, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to keep my brain.
Yeah, you might want to make sure that I can.
Yeah, because I'm not a TV watcher per se. I have certain things I like to watch. But he wants it on whether he's in the house or not.
Now, I want it on, but I don't watch it.
No, he's like
I just want a racket going.
That's him. And I sit in the house. When he was a truck driver and he was on the road, I never turned the TV on. Just me and the cat.
Yeah. I got to have a racket going on.
That's what he says. That's what he says too.
But these are just some wonderful stories that you just from volunteering. Now, let me ask a question, because last time you were on, I did have a message text to me. It was about, could you bring your kids and let them learn?
Yes. Of course, if they're in the nursing home and there's protocol with COVID or whatever, you have to be careful of that. But I think everything's kind of loosened up a little bit now. So yes, that's great and wonderful.
Let the kids get their eyes full.
The young couple I was talking about, they have a son that's a junior in high school, I think. And he's like, when are we going to go back? When are we going to go see him again? I'm like, and one of the ladies they had passed away, and it broke his heart. Because that was like going to see a grandma or something, and it just really upset him. And she said, I don't know if we can do this again. I said, yes, you can, because that's just part of life, But he loved it because I'd ask him questions, and he'd start telling me about what she'd told him or whatever. It was kind of neat knowing that a junior in high school, a boy, would be interested in something like that, because that's not the norm.
Well, that's the coolest of the cool. And even like, say your grandparents live in another state and they don't live close by, you can just adopt these grandparents.
Yes, you could. And I loved my grandparents. I mean, I was with them a lot because Mom and Daddy worked, like you said, your parents did, and they were farming or had the store and were always there. But and I try to get my grandkids as much as possible, because now they're all like teenagers or grown, and I'm not important anymore.
But they'll come back.
They will. Eventually they'll come back, and that's what I keep telling my husband. They'll be back. Don't worry.
With a vengeance, too.
Yes. But, I want to be that mama. I want to be that when that they come and ask me questions, and what about when you were growing up, or that kind of thing. And I laugh and tell them stuff, and we have things like your little antiques sitting around, and they'll ask me about, what was this for, how'd you use that. They have a Hoosier cabinet, and they open it up and saw that funnel thing for the flour, and they're like, what's that? Because they were hunting something in the cabinet, and I go, what's that? And I said, what's where you kept your flour? And it came, there what?
What do you use that for?
Yeah, they didn't have a clue. And I have the cash register from my grandmother and granddaddy's store, and every grandchild has grown up on it. They played with it. They know that that's the store cash register, and they've got money, like they've torn up little pieces of paper and made money and put in there, and so pull the hammer down or the handle down, and the drawer opens, and there's all their little paper monies.
There was something about an old country store. We grew up in Oxford and lived the Chehaw Acres area. Some of my friends watched from Oxford, watched the show. And there was an old store called Taylor's Grocery Store. And it was just an old block building.
Oh, wow.
And I remember that old cash register. And he used it for years.
That's
I mean,
right.
even after everybody else was getting the good, people just liked going and being checked out with the old cash register. And
That's
so
how I
he
learned
would
how to count
do
change.
this, and then he would just do this number, and then out would come the drawer, and then he'd give you change back.
Yep, that's the way it worked.
There's something cool about that.
And then go out there and pump that 35-cent gallon gas.
I know it. Y'all are jealous of that, aren't you? Let's go ahead and cut to a commercial break. We're going to be right back in just a few minutes, so y'all hang around.
We might talk about Gap a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about Gap when we come back. That's what you're here for, right? Well, this is talking about Gap.
It is.
Get those to volunteer, and you'll be able to hear these stories.
That's right.
We'll be right back in just a minute.
I said, God, you gotta move this mountain. I just don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's when I heard the voice from heaven say, don't tell me about that mountain, tell that mountain about me. Face your feet, shout the name, proclaim the victory. You say your prayers and take a stand, get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain, now tell that mountain about introduce the problem to the answer, and you will see that problem step aside. There's no place for fear, the God of heaven is near. Step out in faith and face it eye to eye. Don't tell me about that mountain, tell that mountain about me. Face your fear, shout the name, proclaim the victory. You say your prayers and take a stand, get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain, now tell that mountain about me. Don't tell me about that mountain, tell that mountain about me. Face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the victory. Don't tell me about that mountain, tell that mountain about me. Face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the victory. You say your prayers and take a stand, get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain, now tell that mountain about me.
We are back. My name is Donna Fiesel, and this is Tricia. And so we need to be talk show hosts. You thought about that?
No.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, you kidding me?
I couldn't do this without you.
Yeah, you could. Yes, you could too. But it's just Tricia Hopper, and she's with Gap, and that's the guardianship program. We've been talking about volunteering and all the great things that can come out of it.
Yes,
Volunteering, and can you believe this? We've been talking. We've kind of went over. We're over halfway through, so we've only got 25 minutes left in this segment.
And I wondered if we could talk this out.
Oh, you and I always can, always. And so there are different areas that you can volunteer with. We just mentioned one important one, but there are other areas you can volunteer with as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Like adults. Is that what you're talking about? The younger people. Adults with disabilities. There's especially kids that have aged out and their parents were older and may have passed. and their siblings have lives or have moved off, just like with the mother and the daddy, and they need guardians, and they usually call me because my background's special ed, but it would be nice if we had others that would step up. The younger couple, she's really good with that population, and I think I have one other lady that's really interested in that. So that works out for them because, like I said, their parents are elderly and they pass on, and then there's nobody there for them. Their whole life gets turned upside down. So to
It's
have
got to be a frightening experience.
it
For them
does. It really is, and like to have somebody step in and say, okay, I've got this, and we're going to handle this, and we're going to make sure that you're taken care of. One of the gentlemen that I take care of, his mom had been his only caretaker since he was 2, and she passed away. And he was 21, I think. The sister wanted the house, so he didn't have a place to live. Aunt took him in. He was grieving, and so there was some aggression, but it was the grieving. He didn't know how to process all that. So they brought him into court, and they were talking about what they were going to do, and the judge said, and I said to them, he's grieving. Y'all all cried and grieved, and he didn't understand, and he's still going through it, and you're probably still making your way through the grieving process, and he doesn't know how. So she said, well, you're going to help him. I'm like, okay, I'll help him. So I helped him get through all that. We helped him get a place to live, and then we got him in a day program so that he's active during the day, makes a little money, and then he enjoys going out. He said his favorite thing was going to the movies. And I said, to go to the movies or to rent a movie and watch it? No, to go. Oh, okay.
There's going to be a big one in Albertville
yes,
coming
there
up.
are.
He's going to really like that
he
one.
is going to like that. But he's, he finally got settled in, and now he and his sister are starting to have a relationship where that had been severed. And the aunt told me, she said, now I can come visit and not have to worry about, is he going to be taken care of? I can be his aunt again instead of trying to decide how to take care of him. I can enjoy him. So, sometimes it just works out that way. And I don't mind doing that for individuals with disabilities because that's where my expertise is, or whatever. That's where my career's been. And I love doing that. So it just kind of fell in my lap. And that's how I got started in the GAP program. Was one of my former students came through, and I said, I'll do it. And then I thought, what am I doing? I wouldn't open my mouth and say, but it's been wonderful, and I love it. And our judge in Marshall County, she's wonderful. If I have questions, I can go over there and just talk to her. You need to get her on.
Oh, I do.
Yes, you do. And then her chief clerk is wonderful because if the judge is busy and I can't get in there to her, she'll sit down with me and go over stuff. And I've learned a lot about the law as far as guardianships and conservatorships. And I try to pass that on to my volunteers because, like, I'm doing families now that judges come in. She's asked that I do family volunteers, and sometimes they are the conservator, or family, not volunteers, but family guardians, and sometimes they are the conservator. So I need to know about what that entails if you're the conservator. And so I've learned a lot about that law and what that entails and how I have to explain it to them. Like, they keep trying to go to family credit unions to try to, I said, they won't do a rep payee, or they might do a conservatorship, but they're not going to do a rep payee, so you're going to have to go to a bank, and get it done. So I try to share just that little bit of information that kind of makes it easier on them. And as I said, if you're a family member and you're trying to take care of somebody who took care of you, that's hard. That's really hard to switch that role. Yesterday, like with my dad, I kept thinking I'd slow down for him to catch up, and I thought, how many times did he slow down for me to catch up? And now I'm doing it for him. I'm gonna cry now, but
You'll be rewarded for that, though.
I hope so. I am rewarded. He's a wonderful dad, but if they don't have that family connection, then my volunteers step in and do that. That just gives them that security. Because I thought yesterday, if I wasn't here, Daddy'd have to find somebody to do this, and I hope he would go find someone that would care, that would, and that's what my volunteers are. They care. They call me crying if something's going on. I had one that was sick the other day, and they wanted to call in hospice, and my guardian was calling me all upset. I'm like, it's okay, calm down, let them do what they need to do. Hospice stayed 5 days, and they said, we're good. She's
Mhm.
good.
Mhm.
You know, I said, it's not her time yet.
Uh-huh.
You know, you got to wait till it's their time. And then I have them that call that goes, they passed away, and that's really hard for them.
Yeah.
That's really hard because they get attached,
Mhm.
very attached to them. So it's a rewarding experience,
Mhm.
and it's heart-rendering sometimes when you have to make those difficult decisions. But I can understand why family members would say, I need you to do that and just let me enjoy my mom or my dad
Uh-huh.
or my daughter or my son if it's
Be the
someone with
kids
a
again.
disability. Yeah. Yeah,
And
to be
that's,
the kid again instead of becoming the parent.
you know, a lot of folks are moving into this area, especially in Marshall County and
Mhm.
Albertville. You know, you guys are growing
Yes.
like
Yeah.
crazy.
I didn't think I was going to make it.
Every time,
Today.
every time I pass by, there's a new building.
Yes.
So folks are being transferred in, and you're the spouse of someone who's been transferred into this area. We're glad to have you. Thank you so
Yes.
much. And so a lot of, and you got to admit this, it's who you know.
Mm-hmm.
When you move into a new area, and
Yes.
maybe the spouse has a job, but you don't.
Mhm.
It's a good way to meet the cream of the crop.
It is. It really is to come in and be a volunteer.
Mhm.
One of the ladies who just came in the other day to volunteer, she had been staying home with her kids.
Mhm.
She's an RN, but she'd stayed home with her kids, and she substitutes in the school when she needs to, when the nurses need to be out. But she said, all my kids are in school now. I need something else to
Mhm.
do. And she had talked to an attorney, I think it was a friend of hers, and he had suggested the guardianship program, and she was like, yes, I would love to do that.
Uh-huh.
So she's filled out her application, and we've got to get training lined up, and she'll be ready to go.
Let's talk about the application process. What's the first thing you got to do?
You complete your application, and in the application is for a background check, and there is for the child abuse registry that Department of Human
I'm glad
Resources.
you do that. Yeah, that's great.
And now, this past legislative session in Montgomery, they have passed an adult abuse registration. So I will be processing that to make sure that they've not been involved in a felony of abuse for an adult. So I do all that, get all that paperwork in. I check references. I give you 3 references, and I'll let you do a little check sheet to tell me what you think your strengths are.
Uh-huh.
And then I'll call them in and we'll train. I go over what GAP is, how we got started, and then we just kind of go over the different aspects of Medicaid, Medicare, nursing home, group home, whatever situation may come up if you're a volunteer. And we talk about being just the guardian and what the guardian's responsibilities are. And then they're ready to be placed as soon as they get their certificate of training. And when the courtroom calls and says, I have somebody, they need a guardian, then I'll call one of my volunteers. They have a sheet at the end of their application that tells me what I want a female, I prefer the Arab Gunnersville area or the Boaz Albertville area, you know, whatever they're interested in. And so I pull those sheets and look at them, call that person and say, you want to go visit? And if their personalities work,
I was going to ask, do you fit personalities?
we have to fit personalities, because if you don't have that connection,
Gotta click.
you've got to click or it's not going to work. I've told this before on your show. I sent one to see if she'd be a good volunteer, and the lady said, you look like my ex-mother-in-law. So no, you're not going to work out.
Yeah. Or, oh no, he looks like my ex-husband.
Yeah, really. Yeah, so those kind of things don't work out. So we found somebody else for her. But you know, I try to make it work on both ends. That it's good for the individual that needs the guardian, and it's good for my volunteer. And most of the time, I think and I've been doing the job since 17. So that's what, 5 years. One time was there a mismatch that I had to go back in and let's redo, and it really was because the individual had a stroke and some issues from that, so we had to find somebody that could better deal with that. I think, yeah. And I think the lady that I had, it was too emotional for her as the volunteer, so we just replaced her. And sometimes my volunteers, they have family members that need them, so they have to ask to be removed. And usually how that works, and the judge has been wonderful about that too, is we have a form that I just fill out, and I say she can't be a guardian anymore because of this. I have this person, they visited with them, they think they'll be okay, and can you do this? And the judge signs it and changes it, and it's just that easy.
And think about this. So you volunteered, and then let's say this issue comes up in your own family. Well, then you've got that experience. So you can adjust a little better.
Yes,
Because you've
yes.
experienced it.
Yes, and that really does help, because me doing this, I know when mom and dad come and ask me questions about their Social Security or their Medicare, and why can't I get an Advantage program, or why can't I do this or that, then I've got the answers, because I've had to answer that for somebody else in the past doing this job. And so
you're almost like a doctor. By the way, doctor, I've got this.
But I mean, it really comes in handy that I've learned all this. And like I said, I'm right next door to Council on Aging, who does the sign-ups for the Medicare and all that. So I just go over there and go, okay, help me. This is what's happening. And they'll help me, and I can go back and explain it. And every quarter I send a letter out to all my volunteers, and whatever I've learned that quarter is in that letter. So they all get the information, not just the one who needed it at that moment, but everybody.
Because everybody's going to have that experience.
Exactly.
Right?
I never know when somebody's going to need to know this information. So if I go ahead and give it to you, then you're prepared, and you know what you've got to do to get that done or whatever. The hardest thing is the Medicaid application for nursing homes, and I have finally got my attorneys to help do that, and the DHR workers. So they help, because you have to know financial stuff. Well, my volunteers, they don't have to deal with the monies. And I said, they can't do it because they don't know anything about the monies. So y'all going to have to help them, you know, at least with that part. And then y'all just kind of, so now the judge, she's wonderful, has asked that y'all sit down and y'all start that application right now and do what y'all all can do together. And then the conservator or the payee or whoever takes it and does what they need to do. So it makes the process easier. And then my guardian can just go visit and enjoy that person.
And not have to feel put on the spot.
Right. And it's, you know, when you're trying to deal with somebody's monies and their well-being, that's a little overwhelming if they're not family and you don't know, like mom and daddy, I know their finances. I can do that. But if this is somebody that I'm just kind of supposed to take care of and make medical decisions and housing decisions and things like that, don't come to me asking about money because I can't do that. I don't know it. So, and one of my most asked questions is how much time. And I may have hit on that a little bit earlier, but it's as much time as you want. I have one individual that, well, all of them have family. And so if family comes to visit, I kind of stay in the background until I'm needed to make that decision. I do visit. I do call. I call one of my little guys at the group home, and he'll go, hello. And I say to him who I am. And he goes, yeah, okay, bye. He's done. You know, or hey, we're fixing to go, bye. He would talk to me. And then I have one guy that would talk to me all night long if I'd let him. So it's just different. It depends on them, and it depends on you.
And what mood you're in that day, probably.
And and now I have one.
How they feel.
Yes, I have one lady. She's had a lot of health issues, so I've had to deal for like months on end dealing with those kinds of things. And now for 6 months she's been fine, and I just call and check on her, and that's it. So it really depends on the individual that you're taking care of, and it depends on what's happening at that point in time. Like the lady who called because hospice needed to come in, that really upset her, and that is scary, but it's also a blessing, y'all, to have hospice available to us. And so she, you know, wanted to make sure I knew about what was going on, and I appreciate them letting me know because it's emotional for them, and I want them to know they can come to me and share their emotions, that this is hard on me. Yeah, I understand. It is hard when you lose somebody you care about.
Absolutely. When you're volunteering, whatever. Listen, and I think you've mentioned this a few times. We're good buddies, so we talked about a lot of stuff, and it's so good to have you here. So, has there been times that family members maybe were estranged, and you helped kind of get them back together again?
Yeah,
and maybe they didn't even know why they were estranged.
Lots of times that's happened, and lots of times that's when a volunteer has to step in, and I'll tell that guardian, okay, there's family, but there's a reason they're not the guardian. But if you can mend that fence, try. Especially if you anticipate them passing away, because you need to know where the family prefers the burial, which funeral home, if there's insurance to cover the cost, if there's a prepaid plan. You need to know all that all that information if the individual can't tell you because they've got dementia or Alzheimer's. So there are times that I've had volunteers. It's a slow process. They don't jump in there real quick. They just gradually, like, will text and say, "Your mom's doing good today," or "Your dad's had a rough night last night, but today's pretty good."
Eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Exactly, one little bite at a time, and eventually it just kind of pulls them in. To, okay, that's my mom, that's my dad. Sometimes it doesn't, but I'd say the majority of the time it does. It pulls them back in, and then when the guardian has to make those decisions, they can always go, "What do y'all want me to do?" You know, I have the ultimate say, but what do you want me to do? And then sometimes the guardian and the family don't agree, and if that happens, then you can usually call somebody else in and say, "Here's my side, here's their side. We got to make a decision. This is what I'd like, this is what they'd like." And that person usually gets with medical staff or with the attorneys, and they try to figure out what to do. And then it's not on anybody to make that decision. So.
And sometimes it just, people change when they age. Phil's grandmother, for instance, and she was in her 90s when she passed away, but she was, had to have some help. Well, this woman had never wore even more makeup, never fingernail polish and all this. Well, there was someone guardian. This has happened in Anniston. And so the woman actually painted her fingernails. Well, Phil's dad comes in and goes, "My mother never had painted fingernails." And so we were trying to get him to, this is not even her. But she felt so pretty. With her fingernails being painted.
Aww. That's sweet.
And so, I thought it was okay that they painted her fingernails.
Yeah,
sometimes you got to get another family member to see.
Yes, you do.
That's
you
not really your mother there.
Right. That's, and how we've got them pictured in our heads. And, every time I see my mom, I'm like, wow, she's 80. Wow. And it's hard for me to believe that they're 80 and 82, and I'm having to deal with that. But
if it makes them feel
better, if it makes my mother goes every Friday and gets her hair done. She didn't have a car one Friday, and she called me and said, I gotta get to the beauty shop. I'm like, "I'll send Ronnie to get you."
And you better know it too.
Yes.
Probably been going to the same person for years.
Same person. Decades. When he walked in with her, he said, "Everybody, hey Gail, hey," talk to her and everything. And he was just like, "Wow, she's a celebrity." I said, "That's why she likes to go."
Absolutely. That's all part of it too.
It is.
Are there things that we in the community can do to help you?
Just get the word out that we exist, that we're there. You may hear somebody talking in the church or in your clubs or groups about, "I don't know what we're going to do. We can't find anybody to help take care of or to help watch over them, and we've got to go back to wherever we're from," or any little thing that comes up that you're like, "Oh, y'all need help." Then, and it's somebody that needs a guardian, just call me. And our number is like 256-388-9851. And just let me know, and then I can get you in the right steps. I'm not the one that says, "Okay, we'll get you a guardian." It has to go through the courts, but I can at least get you to the right place to get the process started.
Now, how long does it take to go through the courts? I know when COVID hit, it had to be a nightmare.
It really was. Of course, the courts shut down for a couple of months, and of course, in that couple of months, there were a lot of issues came up, and it's kind of slacked off a little bit. I'm so glad, it's finally. There's not so many coming through the courts anymore, but it usually it can take up to 2 months, but if it's a real urgent case that we got to get them somewhere to live, we got to do this, got to do that, then she can push it through in a couple of weeks if I've got somebody that can
what can happen, and I've thought about this, of course we're here to help my mother, but that what if they just don't know how to pay bills anymore? Is there somebody? I know nobody wants to touch the money.
Right. If they own property, then they would get a conservator. Or if they have like a 401k retirement program, whatever, they would get a conservator, and that conservator would pay the bills. Now, he gets paid. That's being a conservator, you get paid. Now, if they only have Social Security, then somebody can be the rep payee. And GAP right now is an organizational rep payee for one of our individuals who has a volunteer guardian. The judge spoke to my board just this past couple of weeks and asked if we could expand that, because there are some people that
want their lights turned off and things like that because they just didn't know.
Right, and they've got a conservator, but all their drawings $864, and a conservator. Now, this is how they make their money, but if he writes a check, it's 0.1 or something like that. So he's going to get $7.50 for writing one check. And if it's a phone call, then he's going to get $15. And he keeps up with that because that's his livelihood.
Sure.
And I mean, I don't blame them. That's what they're doing it. But if it's just that Social Security money coming in, that's not enough to pay a conservator. So the judge is like, you know, we've got people that will never pay the conservator because they don't have the money. So I've got a conservator that's not earning what he needs to be earning, and he could be taking more cases if he wasn't dealing with this. And so she's trying to come up with a plan. The board said, bring us a plan and let us look at it and see, because I am the only employee and I'm only part-time. So they want to make sure it's something I can handle. Yeah. And I told them, they asked me how many hours I spent on the other, and I said, probably 5 or 6 a month. But I said, it's because it's his money, and I keep checking that bank account to make sure it's good. You know, I said, if I had more, I would check on, but it probably wouldn't be so, I wouldn't be so into it like I make sure he's got the money, and he's got this, and he's got that. So I'm glad we're doing this. I hope we can do it for other people. Even Social Security is begging for organizational rep payees because there's so many out there that have nobody to watch over their monies, and they can't do it.
Well, Mother took 2 falls. Mother, she always has to overdo everybody. Couldn't be just one, but 2. So she takes 2. Well, there was a little while she was out of it, you know, and so, and I thought about that. I thought, and I said, you know, without hurting her feelings, I said, well, you know, I need to know that your light bill's being paid, and because that would be embarrassing on her, you know, to have the electricity turned off.
Yeah. Mother was sick and in the hospital for like 30 days, and I was on her bank account, thank goodness, and I could go and write checks and pay her bills. And that was when she finally was lucid, I mean, could understand what was going on. That was the first thing she asked me. Did you pay my light bill? Did you pay my this? I said, yes, Mother, everything's paid. And you're going to even have money left over because you're not there spending it. So when she came out, I was like, yeah, I got lots of money. But, you know, that's a concern for them. It's that generation. Yeah. You got to pay what you owe.
As soon as that bill comes in, you go pay it right then. So let me ask you a question. This pertains to fraud calls, people trying to get identity and that kind of thing. And so I know several people have told me, some of our listeners have said that somebody has been calling. This happened about a year or 2 ago. Someone had been calling saying they're with the power company and they're about to turn their power off. They've got to go to Walmart and get a gift card. We all know that's fraud. Right. But to them, you know, that sounded pretty
That's horrible to get your lights turned off, and you've got to, it just so
happened.
It was
fraudster doing that.
Yes, it was. And it just so happened, I was at a meeting the other day, and the person was talking to us about these things. And she said, if it's an email you don't know, don't open it. She said, if it's a phone that you don't know, don't answer it. If it's that important, they'll leave you a message. The IRS will not call you. Your utilities people will not call you. They might knock on your door, but they won't call you. They'll send you a letter. Social Security will send you a letter. None of these agencies are going to call you and say, go get me a money order or go get me this. They're not going to
ask for a Walmart gift card.
No, for sure. They're not going to do that. And I also learned that on your computer, when you're using your card, if you're going to use it for anything, make sure you log out, because I'm real bad about leaving myself signed into Amazon. But that is an easy way for them to run the algorithms and pull that card number off and use it, and you're not even aware of it.
You're in trouble. Absolutely. Yes. Less than a minute left in this segment. What do you want to tell the folks?
If you know someone who would love to be a volunteer for an adult with disabilities or for an elderly person, call me at 256-388-9851, and I can get you an application, and we'd love to have you volunteer for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching Afternoon Drive Home. My name is Donna Fiesel. I'm your host, by the way. You can find us a number of ways. You can find us on channel 182 on Charter Communications. That's another good way. Yes. And then also on Abundance TV, which is found worldwide. That's on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, girlfriend, for coming on the show. This is Tricia. I love being around her. So anyway, we'll see you guys later, and you take care, okay? Bye-bye.
I said, God, you gotta move this mountain. I just don't see